Support for your public radio station comes from our members and from Bob Johnson Auto Group, proud supporter of Connections with Evan Dawson. Believing an informed public makes for a stronger community. BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com. And Rochester Area Community Foundation presenting Evening Out with the Arts, a celebration of arts access featuring chamber music, ballet, live painting, and more, Wednesday, May 14th at the Harrow East Ballroom. Tickets online at racf.org.
From WXXI News, this is Connections. I'm Evan Dawson. Our connection this hour was made with a flight booked, and then a flight canceled. It has happened to many of us, but in this case, the cancellation left the passenger in a possible life or death situation. The passenger, a woman named Soraya, had worked on women's rights projects with the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. As she told NPR in January, when the Taliban took control of Afghanistan, she and her children fled to Pakistan. It was there that she applied for settlement in the United States and was approved and was able to book a flight to America. That all changed when President Trump paused the U.S. refugee admissions program. As NPR reported, he expressed concerns that the U.S. could not absorb large numbers of refugees. And his supporters largely agree, saying principles like Americans protecting Afghans who served U.S. forces shouldn't dictate immigration policy. Included in the refugee admissions program is the SIV, the Special Immigrant Visa Program. While it's not entirely paused, government support for refugees' relocation and funding for resettlement upon arrival has been halted. SIVs can still self-fund or be sponsored through private organizations, but the process grows more difficult by the day. That's the reality for organizations like Keeping Our Promise. The local nonprofit has expedited its work to resettle as many Afghan SIVs as possible in recent months. Currently, there are more than 40,000 Afghans waiting to be resettled, and 10,000 have had their applications approved. The limbo has put them in risk here, and as Soraya told NPR, quote, "I don't know what to do. If I go back to Afghanistan, I will be prosecuted or even killed by the Taliban," end quote. Leaders at Keeping Our Promise say the situation has reached crisis levels. So what's next? We'll talk about it this hour with an update from our guest from Keeping Our Promise. And Ellen Smith is the executive director of KOP. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Evan. It's always a pleasure to be on this show.
And Stephen Cady is with us, a veteran and volunteer with Keeping Our Promise, also a dad, student working on a social degree, a busy guy. Welcome to the program. Thank you for being here, Stephen.
Thanks, Evan.
And let me also welcome ZK. ZK is with us, going to be telling his story. ZK is not going to be on camera if you're watching on YouTube. We're not using a full name. We're protecting ZK's full identity, but it's nice to have you. Thank you for being here, ZK.
Thank you.
So, Ellen, there's a lot of conflicting information or kind of just quickly changing information. Can you just set the scene right now with what we know about this administration's policy, who's affected, what's happening right now?
So right now, unlike the regular refugees, I don't know how else to put that, but the special immigrant visa holders are still being processed. But as you said, they have to self-fund to get to the U.S., and this is absolutely impossible. These are people who have not been working since the, fall of Kabul and since we left, and it's impossible. So we are actually partnering with No One Left Behind to bring families here on flights. The program we used to rely on, which was called Miles for Migrants, has shut down. So we're partnering with No One Left Behind so these guys can get flights, and we bring families here to Rochester. I believe that we are probably the only organization in the entire state of New York who is still resettling the SIVs on the scale that we're doing. And as an example, since January, we've resettled 47 families, 165 individuals. And many of our families who were to get funding through a program called Virtual Placement, and that would have entitled them to $1,400 per person, they are not getting that money now to help them start their new life. So we're relying completely on donations from the community.
Do we know the exact number of Afghans waiting for a chance to come here who have been sort of vetted, approved? What does that look like?
So we know that there's 156,000 Afghans with what we call Chief of Mission approval. Now, they haven't gone through the extreme vetting that that actually the Trump administration came up with in 2017. So it's disingenuous for our president to say that they're not properly vetted. So of those 156,000, 118,000 are what we call interview ready, but they need to get to another country to have their interview. So typically that might be Pakistan, or some of the families are able to get to Kigali, to Rwanda. But other countries are just shutting down, and families can't get there. So it's a very difficult situation for these families right now.
Stephen, you want to talk a little bit about your own experience and how you see this issue?
Absolutely. So I deployed to Afghanistan twice, once as an infantry platoon leader and then once as an intelligence officer in the Army. I spent time in Kunar province, Nuristan province, and Kabul. We could not have done what we did without the help of men and women like ZK. It would have been impossible. They did all sorts of jobs alongside us, dangerous jobs, important jobs, everything from translating, interpreting, to working with us to engage with local elders, local villages. They were security forces. They did infrastructure, information technology. They helped build hydroelectric dams. They helped secure roads and routes that were critical for our resupply and for the economy of the villages that we worked in and near. It is incredibly important that we support them now, just like they supported us. They risked their lives. Many of them gave their lives. To abandon them is not only dishonorable, immoral, unethical, but from a very realistic standpoint, it sends a terrible message to anybody that might want to ally with us in the future.
The vice president has said, we don't have the capacity to help everyone. We can't be the world's solution for this. What do you say to that?
That's a lie. It's
a lie?
It's a lie. We are the richest, most prosperous country in the world, right? We have the capacity to help these people. We had the capacity to go to their country for 20 years and spend trillions of dollars fighting there, to turn around and say we don't have the capacity to help the small number of people who gave their lives, risked their lives for us, doing dangerous jobs right alongside us, is disingenuous. It's a lie. And it's dishonorable and just terrible.
Stephen, when you were doing this work and you were working alongside Afghans, was there conversation about, I mean, I don't know how, if this came up, but was there conversation about, someday we might be back in the United States, that our country will support you, that we know you're risking?
Absolutely.
Yes?
Yes, absolutely. And at my level, right, there were a lot of Afghans who were already American citizens or already had immigrated to America. They had left Afghanistan because it was a dangerous place for them and their families. And when the opportunity arose to turn around and go back to help the U.S. military and the U.S. government in their efforts in Afghanistan, they raised their hand and said, send me, I will go. I'll go back to the place I already fled from in order to try and make it better, right? But there are people who had already left Afghanistan who voluntarily went back to go and improve the situation. A lot of our interpreters were American immigrants or American citizens, held dual citizenship. They planned to come to America. Even if they weren't already citizens. A lot of people planned to do that, yeah.
Ellen, what about this idea, though, that, hey, if they can self-fund or if you can raise more private donations, fine, but it can't be on the backs of taxpayers?
The war was already on the back of taxpayers. We owe it. We owe it. And here in Monroe County, if you recall, in 2021, Adam Bello declared that SIVs were to be treated like veterans, that they were to have veteran status in this county. And there are other states, Colorado, California, they recognize SIVs as veterans.
As they should.
New York State does not. And the other thing I want to say that Stephen touched on, but there's a lot of our families here when the U.S. invaded after 9/11. Their families were somewhere else. They were in Iran, mostly Iran and Pakistan, and they went back to serve the United States. They went back into Afghanistan. After fleeing, they went back to serve the U.S. and the U.S. mission. And I think that that's really important to remember, is that, from 2001, they put their lives on the line, and many generational. So I see fathers and then sons serving, who serve the U.S.
So in the spirit of this idea of raising funds privately and trying to keep the work going, what do you have coming up on May 1st?
May 1st is our annual Road to Resilience Gala. It is more important this year than ever, given the fact that these families have no resettlement funds whatsoever. It puts an additional financial burden on keeping our promise, but we are going to keep going, and we are going to keep doing this work. I am not stopping. We haven't stopped for 11 years, right? We are seeking people to come and hear the stories of our families.
So it starts at 6 p.m. Thursday, May 1st. That is a Thursday, I think,
Yeah.
At Irondequoit Country Club. And you can learn more at keepingourpromise.org.
Yes.
If you're interested. In a moment, we're going to get ZK's story, I think, which is emblematic of the work that is happening. But first, I want to ask Ellen and Stephen about some of what this administration and some of their close associates are saying about SIVs. I should ask you first, Ellen, who is Afghan EVAC?
Afghan EVAC is a coalition of groups like Keeping Our Promise, Association of Wartime Allies that are here locally. And this group was formed in the evacuation in August and September 2021 because we were all just scattered and going off into different directions, trying to help people to get out of Afghanistan before everything shut down. So this group came together so we could not, do double duty on this stuff. And many of the Afghans, they were so desperate and they were reaching out to one group and another group and another group. And, I would hear from someone that they're helping this family and I'd be like, oh, well, I'm helping that family too. So by doing this, we created, one group that could facilitate the informational needs to get people out.
So I want to read portions of an op-ed in the American Conservative publication in a piece written by Philip Linderman, essentially arguing for no more Afghan SIVs. And there's multiple arguments in this piece, and I'm going to read, and we'll let our guests kind of respond to each point if you want to. The first point that Linderman is making is that no one should be surprised by the Trump administration's disposition on this, that they were clear in the campaign about how they felt about refugees, immigrants, people coming into this country. And Linderman starts by saying this, quote, "While Afghan EVAC talks about America's honor vis-a-vis these foreign nationals, the coalition would have President Trump go back on his word to his voters, arguably his strongest campaign promise to end our country's unprecedented migration chaos. As Afghan EVAC lobbies Congress and the White House for more migrants, the president is deeply engaged in cleaning up the national security and rule of law catastrophe caused by the Biden administration in opening the border to some 8.3 million foreigners. The 200,000 Afghans admitted from 2021 to 2024 were part of that chaos. The Biden administration poorly vetted these migrants and failed to confirm that they even helped the American cause in the war." End quote. Ellen, what do you make of that?
Well, so again, I'd like to remind everyone that those who were vetted went under extreme vetting, and they were also vetted when they were brought to the U.S. military bases here in the U.S. So no one was just released and not vetted. It's just not true. And in terms of he was clear in the campaign, what Trump was clear about in the campaign was that the withdrawal was screwed up, right? He never said that we should not welcome these SIVs into our country. That was never said. And I just want to be really clear. And as far as Afghan evac lobbying for more migrants over the border, that is just simply not true. They are very focused on the SIV and the Afghans who served the U.S. or worked for programs like USAID, right? Or the civil society, the women professors, the women judges. That is who they are lobbying for, that we can't leave them behind.
Stephen, I take Ellen's point that the Trump campaign never came out and said, we're going to end the SIV program. J.D. Vance did go on podcasts and say he said basically anybody who is from Afghanistan is now claiming to be an SIV and he said it was kind of out of control, that the claims were exaggerated. And so he raised doubts about believing the vetting. How do you feel about the vetting?
Well, again, the vetting rules that were in place under President Trump in his first administration. So if J.D. Vance or President Trump have a problem with the vetting, they should look in the mirror. They set up the rules. President Trump set up the rules for the vetting that has been happening in his first term, right? So to say the vetting is not good enough is an admission that they didn't set up the vetting well enough. But I don't think that's true.
Yeah, do you think the vetting is good enough?
I think the vetting is very good. These people were vetted, like Ellen said, when they came to work for us in the first place. Most of our interpreters had security clearances, right? Which at the time, a lot of our service members did not have. The vetting is very stringent. It's for them. It's for their families. When they come to the U.S. bases, or when they came to the U.S. bases in the wake of the initial evacuation, they were vetted there too. And I want to say, no one should be surprised, is what the op-ed said. I'm not surprised. I am opposed. I'm not surprised that they turned around and said, we don't want to support these people. I am opposed to that stance. I am frankly offended by that stance. I am offended by the characterization of it being chaos or a security risk, or that they're not poorly vetted, because none of that is true. These people have risked their lives in Afghanistan for us, right? It would be the equivalent of saying that U.S. service members redeploying from Afghanistan are a security risk, are chaos. If you want to characterize it as chaos, give more resources in order to smooth out what you see as chaos.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, it was chaos at the airport. None of us are going to deny that. But there was a process in place when Afghans reached this country or didn't reach this country. I mean, we had many Afghans stuck in Qatar and other countries, and they didn't make it here. So that's really important to note that they didn't make it here because of the vetting.
Okay, so related to that, let me read the next section of this piece then. Again, this comes from the American Conservative by Philip Linderman, and it reflects a lot of what the Trump administration disposition towards the SIV program is. Says that Afghan evac's goals are opening the doors for other Afghan migrants, not just SIVs. He says, in fairness, most of the Afghan evac veterans are probably not sympathetic with the radicals in these open border NGOs. But still, these veterans must acknowledge, when they lobby Republican congressmen and White House officials, that Afghan evac is an unholy alliance with groups dedicated to undermining Trump's core policies. While some in the Afghan evac coalition perhaps have relatively modest goals, for example, just to process all Afghans with putative claims to SIV status, their partners in the refugee and resettlement lobby are licking their chops to process hundreds of thousands, even millions, of new Afghan migrants. That is something President Trump should never permit to happen, end quote. Ellen?
Yeah, and I just want to say, look, no one is talking about people having SIV status who did not serve. What Afghan evac is asking is that those in the civil society, the judges, the professors, those who may have worked for U.S. programs, like our Skateistan team here in Rochester, right? That, yeah, they be allowed in. There is no life for them. And, what was said at a congressional hearing a long time ago, you broke it,
if you break it, you buy it.
Like this is it. We went in, but no one's talking about open borders here. It's disingenuous.
So in other words, it sounds like, tell me if I'm wrong, that this coalition that you're part of is saying you recognize that there has been perhaps chaos and questionable policies on the southern border with immigration overall, but the SIV program is in a different category and should not be lumped into that.
Oh, absolutely.
Is that a fair
Yes,
characterization?
absolutely, that's a fair characterization. Yes.
Okay. So this is the next section where Linderman argues that principle should not be governing U.S. national interests. He says we must recognize that it is out of high principle that the veterans remain bound to the Afghan translator, the driver, the intelligence operative who risked his life to work with U.S. soldiers or Marines, spies, and diplomats. Americans acknowledge the deep ties of fellowship that are forged in wartime. But this sentiment cannot be the basis, post-Biden, of another immigration wave. The many tens of thousands of such personal commitments Americans made to Afghans must be measured in the context of the long-term U.S. national interest. Ellen?
We are doing this work because veterans remain bonded. And we owe it to our veterans and to our Afghan allies.
Okay. Stephen?
If our national policies are not based on our principles, what should they be based on? Right? Our principles include freedom, freedom from harm, freedom from want, right? It has always been my opinion that the United States should shine as a beacon, right, to the downtrodden, the oppressed. That's what we are supposed to stand for as a country. That's how we got our start, right? That is one of our core principles. If that is not what our national policies are supposed to be based on, what should they be based on? I find the idea that we are slandering these people, right? Terms like migrants, I think that these people have, people who write these op-eds, they use specific words because they have such negative connotations in their circles, right? We say migrants and we think of, people fleeing from these oppressive regimes. That's what
tend
they
to be
are.
South America. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not the case here. And I could sit and make arguments about immigration policy all day, but the focus here is about our Afghan allies, right? To paint them with this brush of, they are coming here to mooch off the government or what have you, is dishonest. It's disingenuous. It's rooted, I think, in a bigotry, a white nationalism that wouldn't see any immigrants, wouldn't see anyone coming to this country. If not the people who fought and bled alongside us, who would you allow in the country, right? These are the epitome of the people that you should want here. They fought for American values in Afghanistan, in our nation's longest war, right? If they don't meet the bar for you to let somebody in as a refugee, someone that we should be sympathetic to and welcome with open arms, then who would you allow in? Right? That is the counter question I would pose.
The last point that Linderman makes in his piece in the American Conservative is the idea that the future of Afghanistan as a country, that we should all want to be stable, is better off if SIVs stay there instead of coming here. He writes this: yes, Afghanistan is a complicated, multi-tribal, multi-ethnic country, but one also with strong traditions of survival and resistance that outlasted the British Empire and Soviet occupation. There is at least a plausible argument that Afghanistan will be better off in the long run if all our allies remain, resist, and hold out for their country's future. If the United States were sinking into oppression, most Afghan evac veterans, even facing a national situation as bleak as Afghanistan's, would not respond by emigrating to Canada. End quote. What do you think, Stephen?
I think that's a very easy thing to say from behind a keyboard in your office. I think when it's not your life, your family's lives, your children's lives on the line, right? When it's not you at risk of being stoned to death, executed publicly, it's very easy for someone to say they should stay there and fight. I think it is the height of cowardice to suggest that someone else go and fight, which is what a lot of these people do, and to suggest that the danger is not that real is willfully ignorant of the reality on the ground in Afghanistan.
Helen?
I just want to say that right now we see female apartheid in Afghanistan. Women have no rights. They can't leave the home. They can't speak. I'm not sure, what life he would like for them, but that's not it. And I have seen the videos of stonings. I have seen the videos of someone disagrees with the Taliban and they are brought up to the fourth story of a building and thrown off.
Linderman's saying the
I
SIV
mean,
should stay there and fight against that.
Fight with what? With
the U.S.
with what?
military couldn't defeat that over 20 years, right? And he expects these people with families to stay there and risk their lives rather than come to a place that should be safe for them that they already fought for. That's absurd.
We're talking to the team from Keeping Our Promise about the latest with SIV, Special Immigrant Visa Program, under the Trump administration. And let me just get a little bit of feedback from listeners before we get ZK's story here. This is Don in East Rochester. Hi, Don. Go ahead.
Hello. Good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I would like to say that it's the height of hypocrisy, but it's not surprising from this racist, Nazi-like regime that Donald Trump wants to let in 5 million white South Africans, supposedly because they're being persecuted by the ANC government, but yet he won't allow in I don't know how many Afghan refugees there are, maybe 100,000 or something. Won't let in 100,000 people from Afghanistan, but he's willing to let in 5 million from South Africa who are not being persecuted and who are being led by Elon Musk, who is an immigrant from South Africa. It's racist, total hypocrisy on the part of this administration.
Don, I appreciate the phone call. Anything you want to add, guests and student, Ellen?
And as he says, there's 156,000 with COM approval, Chief of Mission approval. They still have to go through extreme vetting, and so we are looking at probably 33% of those being approved. Yeah. So it's certainly, and he's right, it doesn't even match the numbers from South Africa.
Yeah, and that is why I explicitly said it's a white nationalist policy. It is.
I don't think Stephen Miller has really disguise that per se. I mean, I don't know if he would put it exactly that way, but
Stephen Miller's flat out said he doesn't want Muslims in the country.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, okay. Don, thank you. Bonnie in Rochester. Hi, Bonnie. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Good timing, because I would agree with the person who just was interviewed. Yeah, listen, two things. One is, you got to remember, this is who is controlling a lot of this. Well, you got a person called Trump and one called Musk. And this is a pattern they have, and it seems to me it doesn't matter where you're from or what you're doing. At some point, they decide, well, we really don't. We're so pure, we really don't want too many other people in this country. And then that eats at them. And if you look at their history, their personal history as well, you will see this. Number two is that this is a time when the last president, Biden, was involved, and I'm sure, based on Trump's history, he loves vengeance. He lives on vengeance. So to him, this is probably a vengeance.
No, that's interesting analysis. I mean, Trump has talked about, he's written a lot about vengeance being one of his core principles and driving motivations. He's written about it in his books. I don't know per se. I mean, I don't know if he's looking at SIV policy in that lens. Ellen, what do you think? It's hard to guess. Hard to guess motivations. Yeah. Hard to guess motivations. But Bonnie, thank you for the phone call. Listeners, if you want to weigh in, it's 844-295-TALK. It's toll free. 844-295-8255. It's 263-WXXI. You call from Rochester. 263-9994. Join us on the YouTube chat if you're watching on the WXXI News YouTube channel. Email the program connections@wxxi.org. Ellen Smith is Executive Director of Keeping Our Promise. Stephen Cady is a veteran and volunteer with KOP. They've got a big gala coming up on May 1st, and they would love to see you there. This is a time where they are trying to really beef up as much as they can in the way of resources to help people who are admitted and brought into this country on SIV, Special Immigrant Visas. The Trump administration says they don't want taxpayers to fund any more of that. Flights have been canceled, and so that's what we're talking about this hour. More information, if you're interested, is at keepingourpromise.org. On the other side of this only break, we're going to meet ZK and hear his story. That's next. For a number of years, I was under the impression that Ellen Smith knew everybody in this community. And ZK is someone who Ellen is just getting to know. In fact, during our brief break, I was asking ZK, who you're not going to see on camera if you're watching on YouTube, and we're just going to limit 2 initials here, trying to protect identity. But I was asking, how long have you been here? And ZK said, a month. I said, a month? That's one of Ellen, I mean, for you, you do know almost everybody in this community, don't you?
Yes, but we also agree to take people in their greatest time of need, and that was his.
So
He needed a place to land with his family.
So ZK, I'm going to ask you just a few questions about your background here. And ZK, who is this really humble person, said, help me out in the interview. First of all, your English sounds just fine. I can't speak probably the many languages you do.
Yep.
And so I'm grateful for the effort. And thank you
you.
for being here. Tell us a little bit about the road, your path to coming here in the first place. What happened?
When my case approved and I got the COM approval, then I processed my all documents. So after I received the appointment in Kigali, Rwanda, so the only way I go out from Afghanistan was the Iran, because they're good with the Iran, the current the government of Afghanistan. So it was the only way, because they are asking whenever you're leaving by walking, they're asking, where are you going? What are you doing? You are going there. So I said I'm going to Iran, leaving there. By this saying like this, I go to the Iran, then Dubai, then went to the Rwanda. So I handled my case there in Rwanda, and I got my visas. Then I fly to US.
Had you ever heard of Rochester? Did you know anything about Rochester?
No. It was my first time at the last night before my flight. I heard this name from Kim Steffery. She was working with NLP, No One Left Behind. I just comment there for the tickets, because I spent all money from my own pocket, from Afghanistan up to Rwanda and up to here. So she said there was a post in Facebook. They said from the No One Left Behind. They said that we will buy ticket for the people who have visa in their hands. So on that days there was a banned flights announcement everywhere. So I was very in a hurry, because maybe I will be banned to go to the U.S.
But your plane made it.
Yeah, I just buy my own packet, the tickets, because of the announcements. So then Miss Kim Steffery introduced Miss Ellen to me, and then I was planned to go to the California, to Walnut Creek. So then I changed my plan, and I came here.
Ellen Smith is a good person to know for you.
Really. Yeah, she supports us lots.
Yeah, I
really appreciate
I'm
it.
not surprised to hear that. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about what you did in Afghanistan alongside the United States?
I was a regional site supervisor for one of the zones of Afghanistan. We had 6 zones in Afghanistan. I was supporting 2 zones, northern zones. I was working for AMY, Ministry of Interior, as a regional site supervisor. I had 21 IT supports in airports, in ports, in PHQs, provincial headquarters, and RHQ regional headquarters. And we maintain the network, and also troubleshoot the computers and other network equipment on technology equipments. We also prepare the VTCs, video conferences, HQ commanders VTCs, and also presidential VTCs. So we also had the Cisco voice over IP phones, and we maintained everything. We had the a network connection to all over Afghanistan. So in my area, in North provinces also, they send emails, the police forces send emails to each other. And also I support the passport database, and also the Interpol police database also.
Did you feel at any point that you shouldn't be doing what you were doing because you could be endangering yourself or your family working with the United States?
Yeah, lots. But I just, whenever I went to the my job, I just change my ways every time, not going from one way. So it was dangerous for me because the northern provinces, there was lots of threats.
So you changed literally how you got to work.
Yeah, no, the ways I went to my office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And outside of working with the United States, tell me about your life in Afghanistan. Where did you grow up?
I mostly grew up in Kabul, in a Mazar-e Sharif, in Balkh province, in northern province. And I just learned there and I started working there. I worked for over 13 years for the CSTICA, CG6, Stephen may know this. And I had contract with them.
And what did you, for much of your life before coming here, what did you think about your future? What did you want to do in Afghanistan? Everybody wants a stable country. Everybody wants the chance to follow their own dreams. What were your dreams in Afghanistan?
This is the hope of everyone. But nothing was in our hand. As you mentioned before that they says that the SIV should stay in Afghanistan and to make their country. It was very difficult because whenever the Afghanistan captured, I was at home. For very, very, very strong work I had outside, I went outside. After that, I wasn't home for 4 years. Even I can't go to outside. It's I just thinking every time. Just now, the door will be knocked and ask about me because I had a very big job, 9 provinces. I was responsible for everything for police forces.
What is your hope for how Afghanistan can move on or get past the Taliban? Do you have any hope for that?
Well, I can guess it, but as I was there, it's very sticky. Yeah.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
You know, I asked that question of one of our other Afghan friends, and I said, you know, the way we define peace, justice, freedom, and what's your hope for Afghanistan? Do you see peace? Do you see justice? Do you see women's rights coming open again? And he said to me, not in my lifetime.
Ooh. Well, ZK, it's been a month. How are you doing in Rochester?
Very good. Very comfortable.
And what do you want to do for work here?
As I said, I'm an IT engineer, and I also try to work as an IT engineer in here. So I try my best.
Okay.
Yeah.
What has been the most difficult part of getting used to life in Rochester?
I didn't see anything.
No?
Everything is good. Yeah.
Everything is good.
Yeah.
I suppose, I mean, Ellen, we've had conversations over the years where I kind of ask that question, and often the response is something along the lines of, when you go to bed not knowing if you will wake up safe, and you end up in a place like Rochester, Rochester's pretty good. You know, I mean, it's a different set of worries. And it's not that there's no worries. There's worries about rent, living space, transportation, jobs. I mean, all those things are real.
Right.
But
ZK has quite nobody's coming to your door
Yeah.
to kick your door in and drag you out into the street.
I mean, when he says, you wonder if there's going to be a knock at the door. The door.
Yeah.
Sometimes
different.
I just faced with I didn't lock my door. In the morning, I say, "Oh, I forgot to lock my door." So it's very comfortable.
I mean, I still think you probably should.
Yeah, you should lock your door.
But I understand what you're saying there, ZK.
I mean, and he doesn't, you know, this is going to be hard for him, but we are supporting him through this time.
Yeah. It would be hard for anyone.
Right.
You know, I can't imagine having to uproot my entire family and move to an entirely foreign alien country. And I want to re-emphasize something here. ZK speaks, 5 languages? 5 languages, okay? He speaks 5 languages. He is incredibly versed IT engineer. He has incredible technical skills, right? That I've seen him demonstrate some of these skills to me in the most casual way, right? He is far more skilled at IT things than I am, right? Than 90% of the population is, right? This is somebody we should want as an American citizen. This is somebody we should want in our country to help with these sorts of things. He is incredibly capable. He's incredibly smart. I've met his family. They are wonderful, lovely people, right? I mean, but I can't imagine having to uproot my entire family and move, even as capable as he is, move my entire family through multiple other countries, right? And we're not talking, he went to a chalet in the Swiss Alps to wait for a visa to come to the United States. They were in some very not nice places on their way here. And so I can't imagine the stress that would put on somebody and their family to do that. But that would be the better alternative than staying where you are.
Right. And when he came, I didn't have a place for him to live. He was in a hotel for a while, and then we had to put him in an Airbnb until I could find a house. So,
Well, earlier this hour, I couldn't figure out. I've got a computer screen right here, ZK. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't read it. And then I'd forgotten that I had changed my password yesterday. I had producer Megan Mack running in here trying to help me during the middle of the show because I literally couldn't figure out the most basic thing about a computer. And here you are in a place that is new to you with a pretty deep set of knowledge and skills. And, at the baseline, though, Stephen, the first question is, did someone fight alongside this country? Did someone risk their life to serve our country? And it certainly is helpful if they're able to walk into a pretty highly skilled jobs as someone like ZK is. But category one is just, did you serve this country?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. And, it's like Ellen was saying, right? A lot of these people are judges, teachers, and they have skills like that. And they are, bright, intelligent people. But at the end of the day, it's about humanity. It's not about your skills or what you can bring here, right? And I only emphasize the point of like, hey, ZK speaks 5 languages. He's very versed in IT skills. I only emphasize that to show that there really is no good reason, right? Whether you look at it from a humanitarian standpoint of like, these are our fellow human beings and we owe them the best that we can, especially when they were promised things by our country, whether it was, hey, we're going to get you out, or whether it was, we're going to bring democracy and freedom to your country, and then we were unable to, right? We owe them that just for the fact that they are our fellow human beings. But even if you want to discard that moral argument and make a more realist, ends justifying the means type of argument, it is these are people who have skills, who are intelligent, who are, able to contribute to our country, and should be offered the opportunity to do so. Even if they don't, though, they fought alongside us. They were promised things by our country. We cannot leave them behind.
So let me read a little bit of feedback. Kathy in Chilai says, wouldn't you all love to see an organization that does nothing but investigate family histories of people like Linderman and Stephen Miller and publicizes how many of their grandparents and great-grandparents were immigrants? That's from Kathy in Chilai. But I think related to why some people, and I think Stephen Miller, again, I'm not trying to speak unfairly about his own stated public positions, but I think why he views that differently is he said he doesn't want Muslims. The first Trump administration tried to institute a Muslim ban. I think they talked about immigrants from Norway being more welcome. I mean, it's not all that subtle. And Susan says, when he asked who do we want to come to this country, this administration wants white supremacists from South Africa. I have to say, Susan, I'm less familiar with the South Africa story, and I try to be up on a lot of things, but I guess I have more reading to do about that. And then Jack wants to know, says, the veteran on your panel, can you ask him if his fellow veterans tend to be conservative? I think polls show that most veterans support the Trump administration's position on this issue. I don't know what veterans would say about this issue, Jack. I think Jack's not wrong, Stephen, to say that I think polling shows veterans tend to skew conservative.
Veterans do tend to skew a little more conservative, but you also see more nuance in their positions for all kinds of things. I personally, and of course, anecdotally, right, but I know a lot of Afghanistan veterans. I don't know a single one who doesn't believe that we should help these people. Not a single one. I know more people who were devastated by the images coming out of Bagram and Kabul during the fall of Afghanistan in 2001, who, I don't know a single person who is not on board with helping these people because they know these people, right? They fought beside these people. And we have a very deep ingrained culture of taking care of each other, of taking care of our own, of taking care of our brothers and sisters, right? And not leaving anyone behind. And that's what we're trying to do here, is not leave them behind in a place that is going to kill them.
The other thing I want to say is, going back to Lyndon, is what he doesn't realize is how many Republican supporters there are in Afghani-Vac.
Yeah.
So,
Is how many Republicans?
Oh, yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
It's a bipartisan issue.
It's a diverse group, and this is a bipartisan issue.
But J.D. Vance is an American veteran, and he's at the top of the political food chain, and he is not on the side of Afghani-Vac. So, I mean,
I understand.
I don't know where the administration will go next. But before we do that, let me just ask ZK, do you feel like this is going to be home for you for a while? Does Rochester feel like it will be home for you?
Yes.
You want to stay here?
Yeah, I want to stay here and I want to work here. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's talk before the hour is up here about what you need most here. Ellen Smith, what do you need most right now?
What we need is, we have brought in 47 families, 165 individuals since January, and they did not get their resettlement funds that normally they would get, and we are having a big fundraiser on May 1st, Thursday, May 1st, at the Irondequoit Country Club, and we certainly are looking forward to a big crowd there and lots of support, because the money that is donated at this gala is going to directly support our families. And just so everyone knows, staff salaries this year are covered entirely by grants that are salary specific. So all the money we raise goes to our families.
Okay. Stephen, do you want to add to what you think is needed next year?
Absolutely. First of all, awareness, right, of who these wonderful people are living in our communities. Right. Neighbors should be looking to help neighbors. And it's not just, let's help these Afghan refugees. It's neighbors should be helping neighbors, right, at any opportunity. And these people are our neighbors. Keeping our promise, always looking for donations, right? Please sign up to attend the gala on the 1st. You can donate. You can volunteer. There's a link on the website.
That's how we found Stephen.
It's And
is that
so,
right?
Well, actually, so I am an MSW student through SUNY Buffalo, and I was looking for an internship for that program, and I was linked up with Keeping Our Promise, and I went in and I did the interview with Ellen, and it was lovely, it was wonderful, and I was so moved, right? Not only by Ellen, not only by the organization, but by the fact that, like, this is a very important topic for me. It's a very important cause for me personally as a veteran of Afghanistan. I was so moved. My internship doesn't start until September. And I was like, in the meantime, I will work for you as a volunteer, completely volunteer basis. Anything you need, let me know. And so, I've been trying to help where I can. I've helped ZK get settled, and because it is so important to me. So there's a link on the website, keepingourpromise.org, where you can sign up to be a volunteer. It's quick, it's painless. There's a background check, right? Because there is vetting involved. So there's a background check, but it's quick and painless and easy. Volunteer, donate. If you know a neighbor who is a resettled Afghan, help them. Right? Get to know them. Welcome them into your community. Make them feel like your neighbor. That's what we should strive more for, I think.
Let me close with this, Stephen. Your service was, when were you active?
So I served on active duty from May 2007 until I retired. I medically retired in November of 2024.
Okay. So that's a long...
17 and a half years.
Yeah, it's a long set of active service. Did you see a change from the beginning to the end of your active service about how politicized everything felt? Like, if you're a veteran, was there less talk about politics in 2007 and more so now? Or does it feel to me just like everything gets politicized?
I think there was definitely politics involved. There's politics involved in everything.
Okay.
Everything is political at every level. I will say I felt much less supported towards the end of my time in the Army. As a service member, as a veteran, I felt like my service was not looked upon as important or as valued.
And briefly, because we're going to hit the music here, why?
Sure. That's a good question. I think
Because your politics? Because of your public statements?
not because of my personal politics. I didn't make any public statements or personal political statements while I was in uniform. No, I think it was just a shift in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, will you come back and talk to us sometime?
I'd love to.
I really appreciate having you here, and it's been nice to meet Stephen Cady, who's a veteran and a volunteer with Keeping Our Promise, keepingourpromise.org if you want to learn more. If you want to attend their upcoming event they told you about on Thursday, May 1st, they'd love to see you there. Ellen Smith is the executive director.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for
thank
being
you.
here. And ZK, welcome to Rochester. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And help me out with my computer next time you're
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
We got more connections coming up.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.